All right, so you just saw the new president of Senegal just be inaugurated and you're trying to think to yourself, okay, is it actually going to be change? Is it just a talk of him being young and he's going to do what needs to be done? Or is he actually going to fulfill his campaign promises? So in this video, I want to make sure that you can start thinking in a way that it's more constructive as far as okay, what can you expect from a president, and not to get caught up in a lot of the hoopla and a lot of the excitement and emotional banter that happens with new presidents in these African nations. A lot of people are just tired of or a lot of us are just tired of the mess that a lot of these African governments and leaders do, and so I think I believe it's always important to make sure you have a measured approach and response so that you can be more realistic, and also so that you can be a beacon for other people who don't take the time to actually understand what it takes to be a president, what goes into just the policies, the economic policies, social policies, everything, and how complicated it is. To those people that don't know, you can be the person that can inform them and say, hey, it's not that simple. Just because a person is young doesn't mean that they're going to be effective. So I want to go ahead. I'm going to talk about the bio, some things that you want to think about when you're trying to assess if this president is going to be good or not. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel, click the bell so that you'll alert when I do drop new videos. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to start with the bio, the background of Faye, Diomaye Faye. I believe I'm saying it right. Bassirou. I'll just say Bassirou. That's his first name. So he was born March 25th, 1980. So his birthday was just a couple days ago, last week. Right now is April 9th. So his birthday was just recent. And he is from, I cannot pronounce this city's name, Ndia, Indiagano, Senegal. If you know how to pronounce it correctly, then please correct me in the comment section down below. But I'm doing my best. So he just got elected presidency. His background was being a tax inspector and a general secretary of a dissolved political party called PASTEF. And he just won. He has a background in law and administration, holding a master's degree in law, attended the National School of Administration in Dakar. His political career has been marked by his commitment to addressing corruption, advocating for constitutional reforms, and proposing a monetary reform to establish monetary sovereignty for Senegal. So the first thing you want to think about when you hear the background of a candidate, if you are able to find the background of a candidate, don't be impressed by them going to school. Them going to school a lot of times, or just be in academia or be in government, is not a good marker, in my opinion, of someone that can lead. There has to be something else that they've done in the private sector when they have risk on the line. So either they're risking their money, their resources, their assets. They have had to have started something away from just relying on government income. Because government income, if you're just a politician or someone in the government, you don't really have to perform like that, because a lot of it is bureaucracy a lot of the times. You don't have to show performance like you do if you're in the private sector, where if you're not making your marks, if you're not making the results, you're not getting the results that are needed to sustain yourself with a company, then you're going to get fired. And government, if you know the right people, they kind of keep you in. It's not really merit based. It's just more so, hey, who do you know? And then there you go. So just looking at his background, I don't see anything that talks about him starting something outside of academia and outside of government, which is a bit of a concern for me, because now I'm thinking, okay, how much experience he doesn't have. If this is correct, because this is all I was able to find, he doesn't have that experience and cannot relate to what it takes for an entrepreneur, an investor, to risk their own capital, risk their lives sometimes, and just put all that stuff at risk. Now, he was arrested for just his political activism, but that just deals with, okay, the former president was trying to play games or whatever. But what you want to see is, okay, what has the person actually built that's tangible, outside of relying on government funds and outside of just getting people to like them. I call it emotional manipulation at times. So far I don't see that. And then I do get it is a red. It's not really a red flag, but how many times have you heard presidents talk about we're gonna defeat corruption or we're gonna do constitutional like they say that all the time. So it's just like okay, that's nice. I don't really don't let that stuff like tickle your ear. You want to see results, not activity. You don't want to focus on what they say and activities that they're doing. Just focus on the results. If you could focus on the results, then a lot of the BS that goes on and a lot of the nice words that they say, it's not going to phase you. And once again, it's so you can be that person that other people turn to and say, oh, you really know your stuff. Or what do you think about this? They're going to start asking you, what do you think about this? Okay, you have a critical eye. This is the way you can get to that point. You can't think like everybody else. Everyone else thinks a lot of the same when it comes to just African economics and stuff like that. And it's just based out of ignorance. People don't take the time to read and study and learn from themselves. It's just emotion. You don't want to be like that. You're going to be different. You're going to make sure that, hey, you look like an authority figure. People trust you and your insight because you're actively, critically thinking about what's going on. So that's his background. Me, I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, he made a lot of noise. People was emotionally invested. I'm not impressed, just to be honest. So that's the first thing you want to think about when you're looking at someone's background. All right, now I'm going to go into what was his promises during his campaign trail. All right, so he campaigned on job creation. I'm going to come back to that. Job creation, anti-corruption, and energy contract revisions. He focused on youth unemployment, being transparent, and economic independence aligned with Usman Sonko's appeal. So the first thing that I just see as buzzwords, and you got to start getting used to this. When they say youth employment, what does that mean exactly? Because you got to remember, the government is not in the business of creating jobs. That's what socialism do. Or what's the other? Communism. The communism is the government is control of getting people their work assignments, and they're in control of the product, and the government is controlled. This is not a communist country. So when they say youth employment, you really got to think about what exactly does that mean, because the government cannot hire everyone. And I see a lot of this, maybe you see a lot of this where people are like, okay, the government needs to provide jobs, this is the talk of the ignorant people. Just being raw. Ignorant is not a pejorative, is not an insult. It's just a word that means lack of knowledge. A lot of people are ignorant because they don't understand that the government is not there to create jobs like that. It's usually less than 10% of the population. Sometimes like around 5% of the population the government can produce jobs for. You don't want a big government. You want a smaller government. What the government can do is facilitate an environment for business to thrive so that those private businesses hire people. That's all they should be. That's all they can really do to be effective or to facilitate more job creation. So focus on that. Anti-corruption. See it this way. I mean, take it or leave it. See how it goes. I mean, in Rwanda, they was able to, Paul Kagame was able to do something. So we heard that it's a buzzword to me. Let's see what happens. He talked about energy contract revisions, which is really important when it comes to natural energy. A lot of these African governments, it seems like they don't know how to do business. It's not always. I don't go with the train of okay, China just comes in, just manipulates people, and they're just giving bad deals. There has to be a complicit party willing to sign that agreement. China can't do it alone. So if you got a problem with the situation of a country losing their land port because they didn't honor their contract, you can't just look at China. You got to look at the government and the people that are agreeing to this. Because a lot of times they just take care of themselves. They get the money for themselves to siphon it off, and they just say the hell with the rest of the country. So that's one of his promises. He's going to look at energy contracts or have his people look at energy contracts. Remember, the president can't do everything. He has to have a good, effective team. So his team, whoever has whatever position, is going to be in control of that. He also advocated for monetary reform. I'm going to go back to that. Include replacing the CFA franc. A lot of people say West African countries need to get off the CFA franc. It is not that simple. It's actually very difficult, and you need to be strategic on how you do it. Realistically, he cannot do this in 4 years. So, and I'm gonna explain why later on. So, those are his appeals. Those are his candidacy, his promises that he made on the campaign trail. So maybe right now you're feeling good. You're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be the one. Remember, a lot of these presidents say the same thing. If you look at their past candidacies and what they were saying, just compare with what they actually did, then you can see what happens. Because you got to think about it. They have to find a way to get votes. How are they going to get in there? If they get some lackluster, unambitious plan, it's not really going to motivate people to vote for them. If you're in Senegal, you're a Senegalese and you're voting, and you were one of the voters, you got to feel inspired to do something. Now, just expect that a lot of these presidents are they're just gonna say whatever it takes to get in, like to get the votes. That's just the first part. They can have a great plan. If they don't motivate people, if they don't sell that dream, then it's just not gonna work. They're not gonna get in, and nothing can be done. So, hey, just take it with a huge grain of salt. It is what it is. So now I just want to talk about just about every point that he was making when it comes to anti-corruption, its importance. A lot of this is just common sense. You can understand it, but I really want you to leave with some direct, specific knowledge on why it's beneficial so that you can articulate it to other people, because I can't be the only one. I need you all, or I need you to go out and spread some common sense and some intellect on what's actually going on with these countries, so that it's just too many people that just spouting ignorance online, and it's just a mess, and I'm just getting tired of hearing it. So you want anti-corruption measures. So why is that important? Critical for transparency, building trust with the government. Is also important for investments and economic growth. Why is it important? For how does it relate to investments? I think it's obvious. If investors don't feel that they can get a good return on their money because there's too many government officials siphoning off money, they're not going to invest, or they won't stay long once they see the game at play. This happens a lot in Nigeria, where there's just too much corruption because all these government officials, a lot of them, just take off money off the top. You have to pay them a little cut here, pay them a little cut here, and it just gets to the point where what's the point? You're not making that much money. You're taking on all this stress, and now, even if you want to stay in a or really do something, now you're thinking about kidnappings. If you're really successful, it's just a lot that's going on. You really want to stomp out all that corruption. This is what can happen if you got a good environment. You're gonna grow. Investors, international investors, are gonna come. They're going to invest more, and create businesses, which means more people get employed. Really important. So then, leading into investment in youth employment. So when those investors come in, they create more jobs. Even local business people, if they get in training, they get in the support that they need from the government, and the government is helping them create jobs, make it easier for them to formalize them creating their business. There goes tax revenue for the government. Hey, that small business can hire more people, and then it just continues to grow and grow and grow. So investment in youth employment is always essential, and it just also builds up the skills. You have a more skilled human capital in a population. All right, so then you have sustainable energy development. So moving away from, or moving towards renewable energy can help alter dependency on just traditional energy imports and foster economic independence. So you always want to diversify your energy, where you get your energy from. You always want to be diverse in anything. You don't want to rely too much on one thing. So it's a futuristic type of way of just planning for the future, the government, and your country. So that's always good. Then you got educational reform. Why is it important? Well, you got to make sure that your population is actually keeping up with where the world is going, the global marketplace. You can't you can't be teaching your younger population, the greatest asset, stuff that's not relevant and doesn't make them competitive. Because remember, there's children of all ages all throughout the world, and when those children become adults, look at who they're going to be competing against. Are they equipped to deal with the competition or not? I see a lot of these private schools in West Africa, and obviously the public schools are not the greatest. They seem to still rely on this archaic British France educational curriculum, where it seems like it's just to, especially the private schools, like the whole premise is to get them into some type of European school or college, so to continue their education. It doesn't really talk about, I mean, it's just enhancing the brain drain. Like, why would they stay if they're doing all of this to get into a British or a European school? But it also is just, it's, to me, it's just, you're not really creating that sense of national pride where success is leaving the country. Like, it's to me, it's not good. But anyways, I guess this is a situation for the private sector that wants to be in education. If it's you like education, you want people to understand AI and cloud security and cybersecurity, all that stuff. Hey, maybe you can create your own curriculum that steps away from what everyone else is doing and just say, hey, I'm trying to help people build practical skills that they can use now and be competitive in a global marketplace, because the world is changing. Everything ain't about college degrees anymore. If you can offer value to the marketplace, that's what counts. Skills. Focus on skills. So that can be your thing. Judicial independence, so strengthening the rule of law, making the environment more conducive for both local and international businesses. What does this look like? Well, land rights. If someone's trying to sell a parcel of land and it's not theirs, they go to jail. There's some consequences. You can't just, there's lack of fraud. You have to have, if you have good barriers, if you have good land rights, then a person that's trying to build a business, they understand, okay, I can document this. I know exactly what to expect. It takes away the risk, and then they can invest and continue to grow. Or intellectual property. If you create something of values, like, would you say, maybe it's some type of new finding, or it's a type of intellectual, maybe a new recipe or something like that. Anything that's yours that requires, you have to create something and you have protection against that, that is a good thing to have. The government can back it up, and so someone can't just steal your ideas and then just replicate it into the country. You want that type of, you want a good law system so that you feel protected. You as the common citizen feels protected, and you know that there's some laws in place where someone can't just do whatever they want to do. Entrepreneurship and infrastructure investment. So this goes back to my original points. Focus on entrepreneurship, good entrepreneurship where businesses are being created, where they hire multiple people. You need more people employed, build skills. It's also good to build personal development. Having too many people unemployed, especially younger people, is just never good. It leads to crime, leads to unplanned pregnancy. It's just a mess. You don't want to have that, obviously. Then also having a transparent governance, legal framework. So if you're going to combat corruption, there has to be checks and balances in place. You need to make sure that, or the government needs to make sure that everything is open and fair. No one feels like they're getting shafted. That just builds confidence. It reduces risk for the investor. It reduces risk for the citizen, so that they feel, okay, the country really is trying to protect me. It cares for me. Same way how Rwandans are the younger Rwandanese, I guess that's what they call them, but they feel very confident about the future of their country, because the government has created a situation where they feel protected, and that the government is going to fight for them if someone does them wrong. And then the last point I want to make that's really beneficial is just regional partnerships and a balanced foreign policy. So if Bassirou is trying to have this economic sovereignty and have own currency or whatever, I'm going to really go into it. Then he needs to understand. With anything in this world, is all about relationships and leveraging those relationships to further your will, further your agenda, whatever it is, for the best of your country. And you always got to be thinking about, as a leader, he needs to be thinking about what's best for the country, and you got to be strategic. You cannot just make decisions off a whim or because some emotional rise, or no, that's not effective. So I'm going to critique his promises and what it all means, and also for you, just think about what I'm saying, and possibly you have the same critiques. The first one is this monetary reform. So he's talking about replacing the CFA franc. So I think the presidency for Senegal is like 5 year term. I think it's a 5 year term, but he wants to change it with a new currency, and this is not feasible. Why? Because if you change out a new currency, you can then, what it can lead to is inflation, market instability, and loss of investor confidence. If they don't plan it right, or if he doesn't plan it right, the economy, or just if a country's gonna switch out its currency, then they have to go through a long process of making sure all the ducks in a row, it actually makes sense, not just for them but also for their partners, their trading partners. It can't just be, I'm just going to do my own thing, because the world today is global. It's all interconnected. It is not 1800s anymore, 1900s, where you can just focus on your own country. No, you're connected with other people. So you got to think about that. So when you hear people say, no, just get off the, do this, it's like they're just speaking out of ignorance. They don't know what they're talking about. And you got to be able to decipher who's talking with some sense and who's just talking out of frustration and emotion. Don't be like those people. You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be able, people want to look at you as a beacon of knowledge and resource and calmness. Be that person, whatever it display that is, how that looks like in your eyes. You have to be that person. You cannot be like everybody else. If you're like everybody else, no one's gonna listen to you. All right. So he got that going on. So also what can happen if you easily switch out your currency, it's gonna impact prices, savings, just foreign investment. So an example of this, of a country that went through this, is Argentina, which it had a rapid currency devaluation in the early 2000s, led to economic instability, skyrocketing inflation. It was just a bad deal all the way around. And the reason why they did that is because they basically wanted to make their exports cheaper, so it's more attractive for foreign buyers. But what that did in the meantime for their own country is just made everything more expensive, because when they start to import, people are having to spend more money because of just the cost difference. Like the money is worth less. So it just caused a whole big mess. And now, I mean, they have a new president that's trying to switch things up. Also, what was happening, the government wasn't bringing in enough revenue. So hence why they was trying to make they devalue their currency. They need to bring in more revenue. It was just a whole mess all the way around. So that's one critique of Faye, of what he's saying. He wants to switch out the currency and do this. I mean, this is potentially what can happen. Another thing is each economic foundation. So you need to have a strong economic base in order to do any type of currency change. Senegal doesn't have that. If I last checked, Senegal's economy relies heavily on tourism. Tourism is always up and down, and some exports. I got to look at it again, but it's not a well diversified economy. So if you're gonna take out the currency that's currently pegged to the CFA franc, currently pegged to the euro, take that out and replace it with something that's new, well, investors and just people around the world is just going to be looking at, okay, what track record of success does this country already, what did it have on the just with their own economy? Why should we have confidence in this new currency? Doesn't make any sense, because remember, a country is not isolated by itself. It's in a global economy. Other people need to feel confident in buying and doing deals and doing loans with Senegal. If they don't feel confident because they're switching out their currency, which is backed by nothing, then it's just not a good look. Like it's gonna make the situation even worse. So things that can happen: the new currency could be weakened. It can lead to economic contraction. Not a lot of trade going on. Developing industry, lack of industries being developed. A poor banking system. All these things can happen if you just do drastic changes, drastic measures, especially messing with the money like this so soon. So an example is our friend Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe, I believe they have a note in the their own dollar note, monetary note, and I think it's the Guinness Book of Record Museum where they had the highest inflation in history, and the note was worth like 1 million of their local currency, whatever the name was called. And so what they did was basically Zimbabwe tried to introduce a new currency in 2009, and they didn't have a stable economic foundation, and this resulted into inflation. It eroded public savings, and it led basically just to the collapse of public trust in all financial institutions. So they're starting to build up now, but this is what can happen if you just, okay, you're not doing well, you're just going to put in a new currency, and then boom, there you go. Now, Senegal is not in the same exact situation as Zimbabwe, but these are the dire situations that can happen. And think about it: if Senegal is not doing well, the country's doing poorly, then you're going to start seeing mass migration of people looking for economic help, or possibly more people deciding to go on that dangerous journey into Europe or Spain on the boats and just drown. You heard about the reports of people drowning. That's what happens when you're not strategic about the different moves that you do. The last point comes to regional consensus when it comes to the CFA franc. So there's a lot of West African countries that already have the CFA franc, and if you decide to do something different, then how's that going to affect trade? Because these other countries or businesses or whoever want to make sure that they understand what value you have so that they can make a decision on the price. And if your currency is new, is not based on anything, or is not backed up by anything, it's just, they can't have confidence on that, because what if the value just all of a sudden collapses just so quickly? They're stuck. So remember, investors are always looking at a way to limit their risk and increase their reward as much as possible. So an example of this, just think about the European Union and them coming up with the euro. There was a lot of consensus that had to be had so that everyone decided, okay, instead of using their local currencies and making it very difficult for trade, they all decide, okay, we all got to be on one. These are the measures that each country needs to have. This is what is expected so that it can be easier to pass the money around rather than dealing with what do you call it? Man, I keep forgetting the word. Just like, okay, one currency is more like another currency is less, and then the buffer between it, and just trying to make sure that you're getting exactly the value that you're paying for. I don't know why the name the word escapes me, but that's what they had to figure out so that it all makes sense at the end of the day. Everyone's trying to make money, everyone wants to be happy. They were able to figure it out. So when it comes to Senegal, just being the oddball out is never, it's not going to be a good move unless they had something miraculous happen where their economy was all of a sudden very diversified. They really they have a robust economy. Then okay, maybe you can talk, but until then, they have to be more players involved as far as using the same currency for it to work. So potential. So what's the potential of everything working out if Bassirou is able to do everything? What's the potential? So regards to economic and anti-corruption reforms, it's going to be more transparent government and bolster investor confidence. People are going to be more inclined to do business, especially even the people, the citizens there. They'll feel more comfortable wanting to do business over there. Example is Singapore and Georgia. Those are really good countries with strong legal frameworks, good institutions, a good business environment, especially Singapore. Hey, people want to invest there because the government did the work to make sure that there's lack of corruption. If someone is caught being corrupt, they're taken care of immediately. Okay, the benefit of natural resources. So he talked about just energy contracts. If you're able to maintain proper management of their natural resources, and like mining, agriculture, it can increase revenue, which you always need. A country is always looking to increase their revenue, their exports, and also just support sustainable development for the rest of the country. People can build businesses off of those mining contracts, those energy contracts that are more derivatives, so it doesn't have to be specifically taking the resource out the ground. They can possibly make something like tires for the transportation or train. Like there's so much stuff that's connected to that one industry. There's a lot of money that can be there if they're able to get some good contracts, make sure it's favorable to the country and to the person that's initiating the contract or wanting to do the business. Then hey, it's a win-win. Um, you want to always so I just want to put this part in there. You always want to monitor signs of unfulfilled promises just to make sure that you're not just getting carried away, you're not bushy eyed, or you're not rose colored glasses on. Um, Focus on the results that he is producing, what the government is producing, not so much the activities. So they can talk all this game and stuff. Just look at what the average person is dealing with. Have your ears to the street, and sure, I mean you're always gonna have a faction of people that are always upset, but try to be measured in what you see happening. So just pay attention to exactly what's happening, the results that are being produced. That will be a good way to make sure that you're not just getting caught up in all the hype. If Faye continues with just doing good governance, he's creating opportunities for entrepreneurs. So if you're interested in Senegal, you can look at okay, what industries or what sectors should I be investing in? Especially if there's more increased transparency, you just know that it's not going to be a bunch of bribes that you have to pay out, or especially if there's a way to report. If he does something where it's a way to report people that are just trying to take money away from people, then that'll be especially good. Like hold these people accountable. They got to be held accountable. It's really important. They can't just get caught and then be in a court system and then nothing happens. It's just what's the point? It's just pointless. So that's good. An example of that is just Rwanda's investment environment. Rwanda was really trying to invest in the startups ecosystem, trying to make sure that they have everything that they need. And Rwanda is a really good country to invest in. They have initiative like the Kigali Innovation City. So you can use policy. If you can use policy to really promote entrepreneurship among the local, and also to bring in international players, investors, then that'll be good. And then let me see. Oh, okay. Another thing that he can also do in order to improve entrepreneurial success is get rid of all the unnecessary regulations. Regulations stop people from investing or building businesses. It's just more barriers. So within reason, if and you want to pay attention to this stuff too. If you're in Senegal, start talking about this stuff rather than just talking about basic stuff like, oh, we need more jobs or money. That's what the regular people do. You're doing something different where you're talking about, hey, we want to see less regulations, make it more difficult to speak about that. Asking for grants. So if the country is wise, because other Asian countries did this, if you go into a certain industry that the country really needs to be developed, they will make it very attractive for you to get into it. So they'll give you grants, they'll give you tax incentives, or they'll take away taxes, free tax zone, all that stuff. They'll give you more capital or like loans and stuff like they'll do that stuff if you got your ducks in a row. So example of that is Estonia's e-residency program. It's just a way where facilitating business operations through just just their digital infrastructure has helped them attract global entrepreneurs. And let's see, what's the last thing I want to say? Keep in mind also France. There is a direct threat and a perceived threat. The direct threat is the economic dominance that France has had over a lot of its former colonies. So of course you want to keep that in mind. Don't be naive, and I don't think you are. So that is a threat that you want to pay attention to, see where the direction of the country is going, and also the personality of the president. So if you got a president that's not really is not so concerned about being buddy buddy with France or Macron, I believe he's going to get taken out of office. But if you got a president that seems like he got some balls, he can stand on his own, and he's about making some change. And hey, like, let's just see that. I mean, that's at least a good first step. And then you're always going to have that cultural and political influence of France overshadowing Senegal's sovereignty. We'll see what happens with that. I mean, you can always just keep this stuff in mind, so that you can have a more nuanced perspective and opinion on things. So I'll say some strategies that you will want to see Faye leverage in his presidency is to, I mean, really the first thing is just, let me do this, policy reforms for a good business environment. That's really the number one. He should be focused on entrepreneurship all around the country, not just in Dakar. And he's mentioned that he wants to bring more economic opportunity to his home country. So you should be paying attention to, if you want to invest in Senegal, look at where understand the thinking and the mindset of the president, and where he, like, the direction he's trying to go. So he's talking about investment in other parts of Senegal in order to make it fair, and everything's not concentrated in Dakar. So you can be one of the pioneers that get started over there. And then whatever business that you do, will be wise for you is just to align your business model with the direction of the country. And it will definitely, they will be more inclined to give you support. So those are the points, common pitfalls that President Faye should definitely try to avoid during term. He needs to, if he wants to avoid these pitfalls, three things. He needs to prioritize transparency. So I would like to see a president, African president, West African president, do regular public updates on the progress and challenges in order to build trust. So here, America, we every year have the State of the Union address, what's going on with the union. I think nowadays it's just political theater. Especially those last one that Biden just did, is just mostly just BS and just saying lies. No one believes him. But if you have a president that's honest and humble, and has the courage to admit, hey, we're not doing good here, but we are doing good here, just like a CEO, like really being honest, that will be good transparency. People know that he's not just saying fluff and trying to, people, we know when a president is lying. We can just feel it. If the country doesn't feel good, then don't lie and say everything is well. So that's one thing they could do. He can also engage in civil society, so collaborating with NGOs, community organizations, so that he understands diverse perspectives. I'll say he reminds me of Thomas Sankara, where was he? Is it Burkina Faso? If I'm wrong. But one of his downfalls is that he wasn't listening to the people that were upset with how his government was handling things. He was a socialist or a Marxist, I guess, and he just wanted to have control, and it'd be a top-down thing, and he's gonna set all the rules. And he was warned that he has people in his cabinet that are not happy with what he's doing. Well, lo and behold, he was assassinated by his best friend, so-called best friend, and that was it. So in this case, President Faye should really hear from people that are not happy with what's going on. Listen to your detractors. Sometimes they have good points, and you have weaknesses or blind spots that you're not paying attention to. What I would like to see done, I think it should be the first thing, is his campaign, or not campaign, but his proclamation of saying we're going to do a census. Because you need to understand the citizens in your country before you can really do any type of policy that makes sense. I don't hear about any censuses being done in a lot of these African countries. I know for Nigeria, the last time they had a census, it was like 1994. So whatever computer generation models that they have, I think they're just all inaccurate. So I would like to see, start with, a census, who's here, what's the makeup of these people, talk about their ethnic background, the religion, where they live, how much money are they bringing in, are they an entrepreneur, are they just working, like get all that data. And then it makes sense when you start coming out with policy where it's not just from the top down, like you actually have some data to go off of. and it's your data. You did the work. It wasn't just some computer generated predictive model. Like, you actually got the data yourself. That would be good. And then the last thing you should be doing, developing strong institutions, and this can just reduce reliance on just individual leaders. So the way that the past president, he was trying to delay the president or the election, the courts were able to come in and say, hey, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. We're going to have the election in 2 weeks. Boom. So he couldn't play those games. You had a good checks and balance. So as long as Faye strengthens those checks and balances, should be good. So there you go. If you understand these points, you take in these points, you study these points, play this video again, then you're going to be set. So when you do have these conversations, you can apply this to any country as well. So when election time comes around and everyone starts getting routed up, everyone starts getting emotional, you can at least remember these points and think critically, like, wait a minute, okay, what's this person's background? What are they saying? What have they done? Okay, were they honorable in what they were doing in the private sector? Have they only been in government? Oh, I don't know. I can't really tell what they're going to do. Now you can approach it and talk like an authority, and people will look at you like, okay, this person has some insight. They're measured, and they're not just going off the emotion like everybody else. They're different. So you want to be in that position. People will respect you, and then, of course, it's just good for your own personal development because you're taking time to understand what's going on in your region. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. You're definitely one of the few, 5% probably, that is trying to do big things in this world. And hey, I want to connect with you. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Click the bell so that you're alerted if you haven't already done so. And leave a comment below what you think. What you think about all the points that I was saying. And how do you feel about this new president coming in? Do you think he's legit? Do you think he's the real deal, or do you think it's a lot of fluff? If you do think it's a lot of fluff, or the other way around, let me know why. I like to hear some different perspectives from that. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.